I love the dwell on this thing. Good morning. I'm Dwight Homer. I'm a member of the worship committee, and I welcome you this morning to our Sunday service at First Unitarian Church of St. Louis. We are glad you can join us this Sunday, either in person or online. If you're a new person, if you're visiting us for the first time, we'd like to extend a special welcome. And if you are, in fact, new to our congregation, we would love you to fill out a newcomer form, which you can find either in the live stream description or in the lobby downstairs. At the very bottom of the stairs is a book where you can give us your vital information, and we can tell you about our church in much more detail. Please stay after the service for conversation, donuts, coffee, and sometimes bagels. And that is in Fellowship Hall directly below this room. If you are attending online, you can connect with each other in the chat, and don't forget that the link for virtual coffee hour can be found in your weekly e-news. Families with children are invited to connect with Danielle Kozumchek after the service for some more additional information about our RE program. We encourage you to take a moment, please, to send your joys and concerns early enough so that they can be received in time for the pastoral prayer. You can access the online joys and concerns form via the link available in your order of service, in the live stream description, or with the QR codes that are in your pew. And there is, right now, a QR code on the screen that you can also shoot your phone at. We have a few announcements this morning. The first of these is that the choir rehearsal that we normally have on Wednesdays at 7:30 will be postponed and will resume a week from next Wednesday on September 27th. Joel went to a wedding, and Joel picked up a little something that he doesn't want to share with us. Our electronic giving service has revamped its platform and added an app so that we are switching over to a QR code for Sunday offerings rather than the text to give number, which we've been using. The information in the order of service has been updated and in the pew racks. There are sheets with QR codes for the complete order of service, joys and concerns form, and online giving. If you prefer to make your offering using the original text function, that will continue to work. Our RE program starts today with an open house and children's activities. Children and youth will begin in the chapel, and I guess that's where many of them are this morning. Tower Grove Pride is next weekend, September 23rd and 24th. First Unitarian is sharing a booth with other area UU congregations. Sign up for a 2-hour shift and help share the good news about our vibrant faith. Check your e-news for the sign-up form. Next Sunday, September 24th, is the annual pancake breakfast in Fellowship Hall at 11 a.m., and it features Chris's Cakes. So please join us for this RE fundraiser. Save the date, October 1st, that's Sunday, October 1st, 11:15 to 2 p.m. Let your voice be heard in our first ever Congregational Outreach and Community Engagement Summit. See the e-news for more information about how your feedback informed the selection of homelessness and housing for our focus issue. Welcome to this religious community where we affirm the dignity and freedom of all who enter. Here, we seek to live together in relationship and respect so that we may embrace and celebrate our differences. Our religious values invite us to a shared journey of truth and meaning. Sincerity and connection guide our religious community and call us into deeper association with ourselves and our world. Welcome. We are glad you are part of our community this morning. Now please enjoy our prelude, Offertoire by César Franck, performed by our music director, Earl Naylor.
Good morning and Happy New Year. It is not every day that we end up having services at the same time on the same day as our neighbors across the street at CRC. So thank you for braving the parking logistics of this morning. I am the Reverend Kim Mason, she, her, hers, and I serve this congregation as your minister. The theme for this month is welcome. Today, we welcome the duality of both calming the waters and rocking the boat with an auction sermon inspired by Sarah Dashner. Our opening words come from the Reverend Bob Janis. You have come through these doors and into this place. You have come to be with others who care about what it means to live on this beautiful blue-green world. You have come to be with your innermost self, to hear the deep wells within you brimming with courage and vision. You have come to rest in love, rest in the divine silence, to be renewed by not having to be anyone other than who you are right now. You, one small part of the eternal cosmos. You have come to cry out, to rattle the walls that contain all the prisoners of injustice and greed and isolation, and when the time comes, to tear those walls down. You are welcome. The world needs a few people who are honest, even to the point of accepting their own imperfection. The world needs a few people who are brave enough to risk individual comfort for the sake of a larger love. The world needs a few people who honor their own pain while simultaneously remaining open to the transformation of pain to wisdom and compassion. The world needs a few people who step into the unknown, caring enough, loving enough to make things interesting. The world needs a few people who are willing to come alive. The sign-up sheets are not on any wall or any Google form, but wait eternally within the human heart. Let us gather in peace, and let us make room for the infinite possibilities of the Spirit. Welcome, friends, to this hour and this place. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join in our opening hymn, number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
Our chalice list this morning comes from the poet Bob Hickok, a poem of his called Obad. I often feel everything is applause, an apparition of the surprise of existence, that the substances of life aren't copper and lithium, fire and earth, but the gasp and its equivalents. As when rain falls on a hot road and summer sighs. Amen, and blessed be. I broke it. Our first reading this morning comes from the Gospel of Mark. This is the scene right after the Sermon on the Mount, and the disciples and Jesus are on the shores of Lake Galilee. And that evening, when it came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with them. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, napping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care we might drown?" He got up and rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why were you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Second reading, which follows very closely from this one, by a very different source, comes from Mary Oliver, and the poem is called Maybe. Sweet Jesus, talking his melancholy madness, stood up in the boat, and the sea lay down, silky and sorry. So everybody was saved that night. But you know how it is when something different crosses the threshold. The uncles mutter together. The women walk away. The younger brother begins to sharpen his knife. Nobody knows what the soul is. It comes and goes like the wind over the water. Sometimes, for days, you don't think of it. Maybe, after the sermon, after the multitude was fed, one or two of them felt the soul slip forth like a tremor of pure sunlight before exhaustion that wants to swallow everything, gripped their bones and left them miserable and sleepy, as they are now, forgetting how the wind tore at the sails before he rose and talked to it, tender and luminous and demanding as he always was, 1,000 times more frightening than the killer sea. Thus ends the reading.
Each week, we bring our joys, celebrations, sorrows, and concerns with us to this community. We share them so that we may support each other during hard times and rejoice together during good times. Now is the time in our service when we connect with one another by sharing our sorrows and concerns. This week, we carry concern for the families of striking workers everywhere as they struggle through difficulty for the chance at a better future for all of us. We hold worry for those suffering with mental illness and addiction. We care for an oldest daughter as she celebrates the memorial for a caring mentor. We remember the auto workers and all people trying to bargain for a working life that supports a life of dignity. And we hold all those in our community who are currently at home, maybe on live stream, suffering as COVID continues in our community. We hold these concerns with tenderness and compassion. May they be lighter because they are shared. As a community, we also share our joys and celebrations with one another. We celebrate the joy of participating with a good friend and recording a conversation for NPR's StoryCorps. Ooh, I hope I get to hear that story. We are happy for a spouse returning from Minneapolis today. We share the joy of time spent with grandchildren, followed by a wonderful dinner with a sweetheart. We celebrate time spent with family. We honor Betsy and George Grimm Howell and their 30th wedding anniversary tomorrow. Woohoo! We celebrate the rising tide of workers standing and being counted, and the joy of those speaking out for a fair share. And we hold with tender care and send good wishes for George Grimm Howell, who will be interviewing with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee on September 23rd. That is the next step in George's ministerial formation process, and the final one, hopefully, before ordination. We hold these joys with gladness and celebration. May they be magnified because they are shared. With many joys and concerns remaining unspoken in our hearts and minds, I invite you into a spirit of prayer and mindful attention with these words from the Reverend Liz Weber. Spirit of life and love, holy within and among us, help us to be present with all that is our life, both our deepest sorrows and our greatest joys, so that we can truly live, engaging fully in our own life and in our community. Spirit of community, source of love, help us know how linked we are, how each one of our cares touches us all. Help us ask for support when we are in need, and offer our support to others when we are able, so that we may rest in the solace of one another's care. Great mystery, Spirit of care, Help us to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, that we might fully embody love and resist hate. Source of compassion, spirit of resistance, help us to stick up for what is right, even when we are tired or afraid. Help us to dream of the world as it should be and act to bring that world about. Help us find hope each day. Spirit of hope, help us through this day and each day. Help us to be present for all that is our life. For all this we pray. Amen, and blessed be.
Our final reading this morning is a poem called Rock the Boat by Elizabeth Acevedo. Someone might tell you, don't rock the boat when they want you to hush, when they are afraid of change, when they are doing something wrong or that makes them ashamed, and they don't want anyone to know. There is a feeling you might get when they say that, when you know someone has done or said something unjust, something that might hurt you or another being. That feeling might be a tightening in your chest or a tightening of your fists. And most times, you should not thrust out either, but you should follow that feeling and speak up and speak out, even if it doesn't feel easy. Rock the boat. Rock the boat. Practice saying, don't do that to her, or you're hurting him, or I don't feel good when you're. Speaking up might make your hands shake, or your voice small, or your heart flutter like a bird taking flight. That feeling, the tightening in your chest, or the tightening of your fists. You may not have to thrust out either, but trust that your body is telling you to speak up and speak out, because even if it doesn't feel easy, rock the boat. Rock the boat. And sometimes it might seem to you that you are the only one who can see or feel that something is not quite right in how another is being treated, or in how you are being treated. And you may want to be quiet so as not to rock the boat. But just know you contain waves. You are an ocean. Your heart is as large as lakes. And when it quakes, you have to rise and let the tide inside you shake every single ship that would attempt to sweep someone beneath. Rock the boat. Rock the boat with love and hope. Rock the boat.
It is the mission of the First Unitarian Church of St. Louis to be a welcoming congregation, inspiring lives of loving kindness and integrity by nurturing spirituality, building community, and advancing justice. Your contributions support the mission and ministry of this congregation in the St. Louis region and beyond. This morning's offering will now be received. That was gorgeous. Thank you. A lot of folks work in the background to make Sunday morning worship successful. One of them, who we rarely see on Sundays, is Lynn Hunt, our congregational administrator. For weeks now, she's been thinking about how to manage the once-in-a-blue-moon occurrence that is First Unitarian and Central Reformed congregation having services on the same day at the same time. Her thoughtfulness made this morning possible. For our church staff behind the scenes, for your gifts today and every day, thank you. When I was 2 weeks old, my family moved to Erie, Pennsylvania. My earliest memories are of the lake. My parents bought a sailboat, and we spent our weekends on the water. When my brother and I were small, they would put us in harnesses with long leashes that anchored to the boat to keep us from falling overboard, but I always wondered what would happen if we capsized. Yeah, As we got older, they stopped anchoring us to the boat and let us wander around in our life jackets. Gliding across the surface of the lake with nothing but water on all sides was peaceful and exhilarating. Until, that is, the boat would turn. carving big arcs across the watery expanse. Spinnaker full-bellied with wind, the boat would list sharply to one side, dipping so low you could reach out and touch the water. At these moments, my brother, when he was younger, would lean over, blowing bubbles to the waves as they gurgled past. I, an older and wiser 5-year-old, would run for the safety of the high side, certain that we were about to capsize. 5-year-old me did not want to rock the boat.
So I'd like to know where you got the notion. Said I'd like to know where you got the notion.
To rock the boat, to rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat, to rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat, to rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat. Little disco church. You know, this light blinks over here. It's our little disco ball. My body to this day remembers the roiling fear of those moments. So I can well imagine the fear of the apostles as the storm came upon them that day. Just as they cried to Jesus, "Do you not care that we are about to drown?" I looked at my parents, amazed they didn't care we were about to tip over. Jesus calmed the storm, but then rebuked the apostles. "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" In other words, don't you trust me? Which is exactly what my parents said when they noticed me running up that slanting deck. Don't you trust us? Everything is okay.
So I'd like to know where you got the notion. Said I'd like to know where you got the notion. Rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat, baby. It took time. Where did I get that notion? But eventually, I learned to enjoy the rocking of the boat and appreciate how the wind and the water worked with the mechanics of rudder and sail to guide us safely home. I enjoyed it so much so that when a nasty storm whipped up one afternoon on the water, I stayed on deck with my father, comparing the rough waves to being on a roller coaster. Lifted up on the crest of a wave and then falling into the trough to be splashed with water, not unlike riding the log flume at an amusement park. Up and down. Anybody got a roller coaster face? Up and down. And some of you are like, this is my roller coaster face. This adrenaline and excitement. 7-year-old me thought rocking the boat was awesome. The apostles, however, did not think that rocking the boat was awesome. The storm was not their idea of a fun ride. In Mary Oliver's theological poem, Maybe, Jesus stills the wild wind and calms the rough water, bringing peace to the scared apostles. Unlike in the scripture, in the poem, Jesus doesn't ask whether they trust him. Instead, we hear the apostles' musings and misgivings. Oliver wrote, "Maybe after the sermon, after the multitude was fed, one or two of them felt the soul slip forth like a tremor of pure sunlight before exhaustion that wants to swallow everything, gripped their bones and left them miserable and sleepy, as they are now, forgetting how the wind tore at the sails before he rose and talked to it. Tender and luminous and demanding, as he always was, 1,000 times more frightening than the killer sea. Tender and luminous and frightening. Jesus saved everyone, but what was he asking in return? There is a saying that a good minister comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable, wrote Sarah Dashner back in March when she won the Choose a Sermon topic in the church auction. She continued, "As a congregant, I'm always seeking to be comforted, even though by most standards I am comfortable. Considering the question, is Jesus a healer or a rabble-rouser? She wondered about the dual roles of calming the waters and rocking the boat. Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby, rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Was Jesus a healer or a rabble-rouser? Any ideas? Oh, y'all got me, that's my punchline. If you remember anything from last year's theme of both and, the answer is yes. Jesus spent his time healing the sick and comforting the afflicted. He listened to people on the margins and empowered the powerless. He also questioned the way things had been done, argued that we should honor people's lives ahead of religious law, advocated for those who had been shunned and abused, and he toppled the money changers' tables in the temple. He was a healer and a rabble-rouser. This does not need to be an either-or question with only one right answer. Jesus' ability to flex between healer and rabble-rouser, between calming the waters and rocking the boat, is what made him an effective leader. He saved people and made tender, luminous demands. Demands for love and compassion, healing and justice. He recognized that sometimes advocating calm and forgiveness was the radical act, just as at other times, acts of disruption and rocking the boat can be a healing, life-saving response. And he was able to discern when people needed help and when people needed to be pushed and needed to grow. Just as Jesus modeled a ministry of both and, so too can the church. Or if we're following our mission statement, so too does the church. Anybody remember the 3 components of our mission statement? I'll give you a hint. It should be on the back of the order of service. Look at that! Every Sunday. What are we? What is it? What do we got? 3 components of our mission statement. Strive to be a welcoming congregation. How do we do that? Inspiring lives of loving kindness. Nurturing spirituality. And building community. And advancing justice. You know what I didn't hear in there? Or. We want to grow our understanding of the holy, and we want to make connections that call on us when people are in need, and we want to make the world a better place. It's not, let's do one of these things, let's try one and maybe try another. It's, let's do all these things. Both and. It's not calm the waters or rock the boat. It's calm the waters and rock the boat. Yet these three things in our mission statement, they're not singular standalone actions, are they? I had the brilliant idea recently to change all of our communications to reflect our mission. Everything would fall into those three categories: nurturing spirituality, or building community, or advancing justice. Did you hear me say it? Or. Yeah. Danielle Kazemchuk, our Director of Religious Education and Church Communications, very patiently looked at me and said, but some things fall into more than one category. Right. Both and came back to bite me. How do we separate these things? I know by experience that when we deepen our relationships, we are naturally drawn to action by all the pain that we feel, all the hurt that we see in the world. Love calls on us to respond. Sometimes that call is to service, sometimes to learning or witnessing, sometimes to advocacy or community organizing. Each of these 5 things, service, learning, witnessing, advocacy, and community organizing, are ways to engage in social action. And the right thing depends on the situation, on our knowledge, our skills, our networks, about time and location. Social action is so much more than marching in the streets. When we respond from the well of love within, when our actions are informed by our faith, then social action becomes a spiritual practice that brings us further into alignment with the spirit of love. Love, that still small voice inside that some call God or goddess, and others call conscience or morals, and others yet call mystery, or I don't know. Love calls on us to act, sometimes even to rock the boat. Rock the boat and rock the boat, baby. Y'all know I wrote that sermon and it was in my head all day. In the poem, Maybe, Mary Oliver leaves Jesus' calls unclear, his demands vague, simply tender, luminous, and frightening. But we know what they are, don't we? There really is only one: to love our neighbor as ourselves. Our second poet today, Elizabeth Acevedo, the 2022 Youth Poet Laureate, makes her demands clear. She says we should rock the boat. She gives us clear examples of one way to show that we love our neighbors, that we should speak out when someone is being hurt, when something wrong or unjust is happening. She wrote, practice saying, don't do that to her, or you're hurting him, or I don't feel good when you. Speaking up might make your hands shake, your voice small, or your heart flutter like a bird taking flight. But trust that your body is telling you to speak up and speak out. Such a tender and luminous demand, and so very frightening. Shaking hands, small voice, fluttering heart. Such a demand recognizes that rocking the boat and calming the waters aren't necessarily separate things. For someone being hurt, intervention can be an act of healing. Receiving justice can be a balm for a wounded heart or a damaged community. Sometimes rocking the boat can create opportunities for reconciliation and repair. If you were raised like me, the phrase rock the boat makes you feel a little something. Maybe in a scared or uncertain way, a yikes, this boat is going to tip over way, or a how will things change way. Or maybe in a fired up way, yay, I love roller coasters way, or things are going to change way. Or maybe a little bit of both. It's normal to feel both excited and tentative about change. Reflecting on Oliver's poem, Maybe, the bloggers for SALT, a progressive Christian production company, wrote, quote, "We may plead for deliverance, but the truth is we're often attached, more than attached, to the way things are. The devil we know, and wary when things threaten to change." Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby, rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. As a congregation, we're on a journey together in this boat. Kind of an upside-down boat, isn't it? Last year, we launched the Active Hope Project, a year-long listening process that included in-person interviews, group discussions, a survey, and one-on-one phone calls with the entire congregation. The project explored how people felt about social action and social justice, how they felt about the congregation participating in social action in the community, and what issues were most important to the members of this congregation. The results of the process highlighted two results: that the members of this congregation want the church to participate in social action, either as a clearinghouse or as an organizer, and that folks are passionate about the issues of racism and homelessness and housing. Informed by the results of the Active Hope Project, we're hosting a community outreach and engagement summit on Sunday, October 1st. At the summit, we'll explore what it means to engage with the spiritual practice of social action and how we might do so on the topic of housing and homelessness. It's a really big topic, I know. That's kind of the point of the summit. We'll look at what we already do in this area, where we have existing connections, and what specific aspects of this broad topic we want to work on. What better way to put our faith into action than by doing meaningful work together? It builds community and nurtures spirituality. I've been in a lot of boats since those early days on Lake Erie. I've been in a single-person kayak, a 4,000-person cruise ship, and an inflatable raft tossed through a Class 5 rapid. To this day, the scariest boat I've ever been in was a 2-person canoe in the middle of a lake. The water was calm as we set off for the opposite shore. But then a thick fog rolled in. It was nothing like a fun amusement park ride when the wind turned the water choppy and it began to rain. I was not having fun. 30 minutes later, with waves crashing over the bow of the canoe and the wind buffeting us, we had no idea where we were going. I prayed desperately for the storm to calm and the fog to lift. I was scared we were going to capsize in the middle of the lake. But what we did in that moment was to trust our navigation and stay on course. In the middle of a lake with no visibility, all we could do was trust that once pointed in the right direction, our skills would keep us headed safely towards shore. It's not unlike any new endeavor, is it? Calm waters that can turn challenging, a storm threatening to overturn your plans. Rock the boat! Don't rock the boat! In such a situation, you trust the process. You say yes to both and to the call of love to heal a wounded world. That day on the lake, the fog finally lifted as we coasted the last few feet into shore. Trusting our direction, we'd made it safely home, and a bright new day was dawning. I invite you to stand as you are willing and able and join in our closing hymn. Number 1014, it's an insert in your order of service, Answering the Call of Love. Please rise as you are willing and able. Our closing words come from Elizabeth Acevedo. Know you contain waves. You are an ocean. Your heart is as large as lakes. And when it quakes, you have to rise and rise. Let the tide inside you shake every single ship that would attempt to sweep someone beneath. Rock the boat. Rock the boat. With love and hope, rock the boat. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace. Please stay for the postlude. Then, when it is finished, as your final act of worship, please turn and greet your neighbor.